What happened?
Okay, so I've been a painter for 24 years, and anyway, so had a conversation with my wife one day. It's like, I want to be a cop, and so I had an opportunity to be a reserve officer. So I'm actually a fully certified police officer with my local department. There's about 8 officers, and I get to patrol by myself, fully certified. And with the systems that I have in place, I don't get to work in the field, or I don't have to work in the field very often. So I get to be an officer in the evenings whenever I want to. So it's pretty cool. But anyways, I had this one guy, Chris, working with me. Really, really good guy. He was with me for about 6 years. I actually got him from sort of a halfway house. He got clean. He was on drugs, but he got clean for like 6 years. Was an all-star painter. Put him in my rent house. Was perfect. And one day, he brings this girl living with him, and she got him into all kinds of trouble. And long story short, he ended up getting back into drugs, and I tried to get him some help, and he refused, and ended up having to fire him on a Thursday morning. And I was so upset. I just went to work, and then I got a call from my sergeant at the PD and says, "Hey, our other sergeant is sick. Can you work tonight?" And I'm like, yeah, I need to get my mind off of what happened. And so I'm patrolling at night, and I get a call on the radio. It says, "Hey, there's this guy driving a red Ford Fusion, and he's talking to the trees at the Jiffy Trip." And I was like, oh no, this is my guy. And I was so humiliated. So I go out there to the Jiffy Trip. It gets worse. He's high, and he's talking to the trees. He's still wearing my watermark hoodie. So I'm arresting a guy that I just fired earlier that day, and he's wearing my watermark hoodie. These 2 troopers show up to my scene, and troopers never show up to my scene. And I don't even know this guy. His name's Josh Kelly. And I'm like, hey, dude, I just fired this guy earlier this morning. I need to have you do the SFSTs because I don't want this thing to fall apart in court. And so that was my biggest, craziest thing that's ever happened to me as a cop and as a business owner. So that was wild.
You had to arrest a guy you just fired by raising hands. Who's had a guy they fired they would have liked to have been able to arrest? Oh,
Especially when they run off with your tools.
yes. Oh, man. That was awesome, Carol. Thank you. Well, hello and welcome to the DYB podcast. Now, we all know how hard it is to grow a business, and it's much harder going it alone, but you don't have to. In this special episode, you get to experience what it's like to be a member of a DYB Mastermind Group, thanks to Mastermind Group 11, the Intercontinental Mastermind Group, members from the U.S., Canada, and Australia. And they've all agreed to share the experience with you. The Mastermind Group is a peer-to-peer group that meets every other week over a Zoom call. A mastermind group that shares struggles along with your wins, helping you to double your business faster. So without further ado, let's get this road on the show. Hello and welcome to MG11, the Intercontinental Mastermind Group. Yeah. Our mission is to build profitable businesses so that we can have financial freedom, time for our families, and make an impact in our communities. Let's kick it off with some big wins. Scott, would you lead the way, please?
Okay, big wins this week. It's been a good start to the week. I know it's only Tuesday, but yesterday we rolled in with our first Google review of the week. Hope to get a few more, get those numbers, and get that Google juice growing. Also, met a client who had called me out of the blue last week, set them up on my emails, and went in to do the estimate. Turns out I did work for them in 2008, and I'd forgotten over the last decade and a bit. And so I sold that job on the spot, sold a $3,000 job on the spot, left with a check. So that's a big win for.
Yeah. Yes, sir. All right. Awesome sauce. Thank you, Scott.
Bryce, we had a guy who used to work with us several years ago reach back out and say, hey, I just left the company I was with and I was looking for a job and I thought about you guys. And so what's awesome about that is we got him back in and he's already a leader. He's already knows my system and it was just seamless. We got them right in, and it was just like, here's your toolbox. Let's get back to work. And so we got a really, really good all-star on staff again. I'm very excited about that.
Yes, sir. That is awesome. Winner chicken dinner. It's sometimes the guys who come back end up being some of the best guys. So now they realize like what they really had, you know. So glad to hear that. Thank you, Bryce. Sonia, big wins.
I applied the interview system for the crew that we contracted a new crew for like cabinets and so forth. And so just like Bryce, it's been so easy with them. They've been picking up all the paint. They've been like doing everything. And I'm just sitting back, trying not to not try to interfere. And it's been wonderful. I'm like so excited. And we were able to, I put them on this new project that we earned. That was it's an RV. It's a nice win. It's all woodwork. And so I do it I did like a cabinet job and plus the interior paint. And I'm just excited about how that went. That went really well. And thank you for that systems work. And if you followed this, especially, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Sonia. That was pretty cool. Steven.
Last week I mentioned to you guys on Thursday, I was interviewed by an apartment complex that's 3,000 units. We submitted all our paperwork and we're approved to roll. So that's good. We're starting out with our first
3,000 units.
Each building has 1,000 units. It's crazy. I looked at this, I started crying. I'm like, thank you, Lord. But it happened. Or it's happening, I could say that. We got our first job. We'll be in there this week. Microwave, one of the units is behind me. So we had to pick up a new microwave for the unit to install. So it's nice. It'll be a nice shot for us. That's a huge win.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Back to Daryl. Big wins, Daryl?
Yeah. Well, my Google reviews have been really working. I was in Rotary yesterday, and my wife and I share the business phone. I happened to have it yesterday, so I checked my voicemail when I got out my truck, and this lady's on the message. She's like, "Yeah, I'm just trying to get someone to give me a bid on my fence." And she wasn't mean, and I called her back, and I said, "Okay, before we talk about your job, I can tell by your voicemail you've called several people, haven't you?" She says, "Yes." She goes, "I can't get anybody to answer their phone." And she's from California. I saw her area code, and so I was asking her questions about that. And so anyways, I started talking to her about this group here. And I said, I got a business coach. We do a mastermind. I'm the only guy with a website. She's like, "Yes, I've noticed that." She's like, "That's so crazy." But anyway, so I've already built a tremendous amount of rapport with her, and I'm meeting with her today to look at a job. And then a job that I'm doing right now is my first official job that I got that was from Facebook. It was kind of weird, and she's a raving client already. So we're going to do another job for her in a couple of weeks. So.
Yes. Okay. That's awesome, Daryl. Way to go, buddy. Fantastic. All right. Back up to Canada. The caffeinated Canadian painter, Craig. Big wins.
I guess biggest win this past couple of weeks is did job costing for the last 6 weeks, and profitability has been pretty good over the last 6 weeks. Much better than earlier in the year, so that is a big win.
Fantastic. Way to go, and way to stay on top of job costing. That is key number one for profitability, controlling profitability. Way to go. All right. Isaac, good morning. Big wins.
Morning. Yeah, so Rotary just continues to be a good move for me, and it seems like everywhere in town I'm seeing people from my Rotary group. And last week it just so happened that my Sherwin-Williams rep called me up and said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing any charity work?" And I said, "Yeah, what do you got going on?" And there's this group called 2x4s for Hope that builds tiny homes for disabled veterans. And so they had built a home just about 20 minutes away from me. And so I grabbed my sprayer and head down there and knock it out in just a few hours. And it just so happens that the guy from Rotary is there that I hadn't had the chance to meet yet. So, "Hey, I recognize you." And so we got to talking. Well, turns out he works for the newspaper, and turned into a newspaper ad for me. And I told him, like, "Hey, definitely don't need it. I appreciate it, but I didn't think that he was going to put me in, but I just had Rotary again yesterday. He's like, 'Hey, I got you in there.' And so that was really cool. I was listening to, you talking about how just different random things will turn into a newspaper article. I'm like, hey, we're heading in a good direction. So yeah, that was really cool.
Yes. And it was through contacts through Rotary that helped us to land so many articles in the newspaper.
Sweet.
That's fantastic. The good news is, like, you're doing it all the goodness of your heart, and look where it landed you, right?
Yeah.
Now, if make sure you follow up and send them a thank you card.
For sure, that's a good idea.
Okay. All right. Right on, Isaac. All right. Down under with Rob V.
Rob V. Yeah. Rob V. The only one wearing a jacket because it's winter down under. So big win for me. It's always like Scott, when you do work for a previous customer and you go and bid on some work for them, and you don't even have to present the price. You've got the job. It's a formality, and it's always a good thing when a customer goes, "Don't worry about that. When can you start?" And so that was my big win, and very warmed the heart to have such a clean and smooth process. So that's good.
Indeed. Fantastic. All right. Way to go, Rob. Thank you. And Brandon.
A lot of good things going on, but something I'll say is since we integrated Nice Job into our review process, and since March, I've gotten 24 5-star reviews.
Wow.
Sweet.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Just about 2 months, we've gotten 24. So.
Okay. All right. Well done. Well done indeed. All right, let's kick it off with one thing. This is one thing we get to brainstorm for you, such that might make everything else easier and or unnecessary. Who'd like to lead?
Alrighty.
Bryce, thank you. Go for it.
Right now we're trying to focus on onboarding, because we've started Indeed up and we're starting our interview process up, and it's like I feel like the dog who's chasing something, and I'm like, okay, once I get it, what are we gonna do with it? So what have been the best tactics that you guys have figured out for onboarding new guys, and good gestures or ways to start the relationship where you start on a strong foot?
Ooh, good question. Okay. Onboarding new employees. Go ahead, guys.
I've talked about this in the past. I think it's in the DYB Cafe, and I'm going to say it's Mark Black from Men in White Painting, and I can't find it again, but he had this great process. It was about a 3-page document that was, I think, in the mastermind section in the cafe. And he talked about how, he'd bring them into the shop and he would have lunch with them, and there'd be a formal process with the office manager, but then he would have a one-on-one lunch with them. And then I can't remember the rest of the document for the life of me, but it's a really, really, really good document. And it's his process is second to none. It's so good. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really good. It's really, really good.
Any other thoughts for Bryce?
Yeah, I was going to say we recently did a group onboarding with the last 4 employees that we brought in, and one of the things that I did is I had like a thing to work through, which was getting them all onboarded into our payroll system, and then I went through our tech stack. So all of the different tech that we used, I had them all, get their phones out, make sure that we got into all of our different tech that we use. I won't list them out for this, but train them on how to use each one. And then after that, I had them get onto our CRM and onboard them into that, get them integrated with how to use the schedule and see their jobs and scope of work, job forms. And then we would walk through the entire employee policy manual together, going through like what expectations are here at our company, just working through it, not necessarily reading it word for word, but going through each section and paraphrasing it with the guys, making sure that they understand the expectations, and then going over KPIs. So I have it's like a 3-page document for each different person that I'm hiring, each position. and go through the KPIs, which is basically, you know, hey, here's your job. This is what you're going to do. This is what's expected of you. And then I would end it with just our interior painting process and our exterior painting process and walking them through it step by step, and how we show up to a job, how we interact with a customer, how we perform the job, and then how we leave the job and finish it out.
Fantastic. Everybody's taking notes.
Can I just add one thing as well? I think one of the secret sauces to onboarding is when your current employees reinforce all the processes, or processes as you Americans like to call them. So, like if, for example, if you're trying to get them to be on a certain app, and your current employees say, you don't have to worry too much about that. They'll listen to the current employees. Whereas if they reinforce, like, you know, you better be on time because he's serious when he says that, you know, that you'll get 3 chances and then you'll be gone. If they're reinforcing stuff like that, then that carries so much more weight. So I think a lot of the onboarding process has to deal with having good culture and making sure that the current employees are reinforcing that, because I don't know, it's just human nature. Like, people listen to, you know, their fellow employees more than they listen to the boss.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. Great point, Craig. Thank you. Well, speaking of Craig, you're up.
I guess this is kind of a fun one. We're up to 93 Google reviews. So I want to do something special when we hit 100. Okay. And there's that alarm that I talked about.
Yeah, I couldn't even hear it.
Just give me a second.
Okay. We'll come back to you, Craig. Sonia.
Okay. Well, my situation is on scheduling, but I feel like just with the whole, because I'm a little newer in this, and I've been in the community, but, you know, taking bits and pieces. But I feel like that squirrel from Ice Age that was like, man.
Yeah.
Yes. And excuse me.
Bryce, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, no.
I thought I saw your hand up.
So
I mean to call you out.
It's been something I've been working on a lot, is trying to get into a set of routines. And then one thing, so like you call it like your workday startup ritual, right? Where I have a whole list. Mine has 7 items on it, and it starts with like, hey, like, and I get my full focus planner out, and then we're like, hey, we check the Google Calendar, we check our job schedule, we make sure that there's no surprises or anything, you know, that we had forgotten about. As soon as I get that done, then it's like, all right, now I'm going to respond to any emails that needed to be responded to, get them checked off the list. Then I'm going to pull out my phone. I'm going to make sure I'm updated on all of the text messages. Then we move forward. Any pending estimates that haven't been sent, if I didn't send them on the spot, they need to be finished and sent out. Then any materials that need to be done, we're going to go ahead and order those materials. Then we'll do the job costing updates. And then finally, you update your Monday.com or whatever your production software is. After you've got that done, then you have time for actually working on implementing DYB system stuff, or implementing stuff that's actually in the functioning of the business, working on the business. For me, I think the best thing to do, though, is I have to get all of the operational things out of the way first. And that way I find that I'm not chasing things all the way around. Because otherwise, say if I didn't do all that, and then I start my day by trying to implement a big shiny thing that's going to be awesome and help change the game, but then I forgot all of the operational things, inevitably in the middle of my big brainstorm where I'm like, yes, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do this. All of a sudden I get a phone call and I'm like, oh, we forgot about that. Oh man. And then I got to stop and call the paint store or do whatever. And so that's my advice there. It's like, you got to go ahead and get all of the operational stuff out of the way. Mm-hmm. Make sure everybody's set and settled. Make sure the day's about to start. And then you can start a separate jam session where you're like, all right, I'm going to implement this new thing. We're going to work on our standards or operating procedures or whatever.
Yes, that's fantastic, Bryce. So to follow up with what Bryce is saying, when it comes to, okay, what system or strategy do I want to implement next? Write down this question. This is, you've heard us say it often. It's from Gary Keller's book, One Thing. And I'll say it slowly so you can write it all down. And what you do is you get your list of all your projects that you want to do, and then you ask yourself this question: what is the one thing that I can do such that by doing it will make everything else easier and or unnecessary?
Easier or unnecessary. Okay, got it.
It's written up on my wall right there.
Yes, sir. Right on the wall.
Yeah. Sonia, I'm sure most of you are familiar with Brian Tracy, but he's got a book, and I think it's a program as well, called Eat That Frog. And that book has done a lot for me, getting some of those bigger tasks out of the way. That way you can concentrate on the things that you really need to get done. Because for me, like, I'm trying to figure out this QuickBooks thing. My mind is racing on several other things. Well, no, my mind is just on QuickBooks. I'm working with Ron on that. I've thrown everything else aside until I nail that. I'm eating that frog, so that way I can concentrate on these other little things. And so Brian Tracy's Eat That Frog is really good.
Okay, great, thank you.
Something that Steve brought up in our one-to-one recently was the Eisenhower matrix, which I've found really helpful. And so it's 4 quadrants, and the first quadrant, priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, and 4. The first one are things that need to be done that day. The second one, they tend to be things that can be done the next day or so. Priority 3, probably the next week, and then priority 4 is delegate, basically. And so I have ADD, full disclosure, and so I've been working with an app called Todoist, which I think Steve put me on ages ago, but I rediscovered, and you can actually prioritize tasks with that app. And so you can have priority 1 to 3 to 4, basically. So things that need to be done that day. The beauty is that having ADD, my mind is very porous. So things come into my mind and then disappear as quick as they come in. So I need to grab those things when they come into my mind so I can quickly talk into my phone, put it straight into my Todoist app. And if it has to be done that day, give it a priority. I find the Todoist app on my phone is really good because it also gives you a geographical thing. So when I get to this location, it'll pop up with a notification saying, hey, you're at this address. You need to remember to do this thing. So I find it very helpful with the way that my brain works. Crossing over with the Einstein matrix and using that in the Todoist has been helpful. I've been doing it for a few months now, and it seems to be working for me. But I do like what Bryce does, which is also an ADD thing. A launch thing, a launch process that you'll have in the morning is an ADD thing that I find as well works as well.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Let's circle back to Craig. Craig, I believe, is how to celebrate the 100th Google review. Is that where?
That's that's correct. So I was going to do bonuses, but if anybody has a way to dress it up, more balloons, T-shirts, feel free. Feel free. I'm all ears.
Wouldn't do bonuses, but I would do quality time together, an event together. And then if you really want to knock it out of the park, this is the best thing you can ever do for your team. And that is make a list of your team and then find a unique quality about them, something special. What is their unique superpower? What is their habit that just crushes it? And invite their families to this get together. And when you get an opportunity, go around to each person on your team. And if they have children, speak to their children in front of their spouse and let them know, hey, do you know that your dad is the most prompt person we have on our team? Like, he is on time every time. He is one of our strongest leaders. Your dad is one of our superheroes.
I like that.
This is the best thing you could ever do for your team. is to praise them in front of their family, to their children, in front
Sounds
of their
like
spouse.
it's a cookout.
That's it.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts for Craig, guys?
I'd probably do that and then celebrate it with large on all socials.
Yeah.
Get as much.
I saw Jeremy from GLS did a cookout, and at the cookout he also did free paint giveaway, where any extra paint that they had laying around in the shop, anything like that, they just brought it out and kind of labeled it and let people know, like, hey, I got some trim paint over here, got some wall paint over here. Do you want some free paint? And try to make it something where it's not just the guys, like you're trying to include the community. And, one thing, this is just something I've recently decided to allow Facebook into my contacts. And now as a general rule, anytime somebody is suggested and I know that we've done business together or I've done an estimate for them or this, that, and the third, I just add friend. And all of a sudden it's been awesome. I've had a lot of clients who've re-engaged and have been like, oh my gosh, you guys have been really busy. This looks great. And trying to get some of them to that same cookout would be really killer.
Oh, yeah. So here we go. Hold on. Watch this, Rob. Step 9. So it's awesome, Craig. Step 9 is so easy to stay up in mind as well. Everybody's all right. Fantastic. Thank you all. Let's.
Nice. Thank you.
Steven, you're up.
So as we spoke last,
Nice and loud,
as we
please.
spoke last week, I stopped buying leads, which to me blew my mind. I was panicking, but I have more free time now, so I need to organize my time better to get new business. This 3,000 unit apartment complex I got from an attorney from the network group, who he hooked me up, and so that was one of the things I did. And I just keep going back through people in my networks and kind of calling them out, asking for business, which I never did. But I'm doing it now, and I got a full book. I'm
awesome.
filled. I'm maximum capacity right now. We're running hard, which is good. But I just need to know how to organize my time better.
So
we're doing note cards, which I haven't done in a while. What else could I be doing?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so just let me reframe this for everybody in case the audio was low. Steven came into DYB and he was paying, and I forget, somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000, maybe some months $7,000 a month on paid leads, and he quit. Yeah, and he's implementing the system, he's networking, he's following up, and so not only is he saving, $5,000, $7,000, $10,000 a month pure profit in his pocket, but he's not running around with his head cut off chasing C&D leads anymore, and he's landing these high quality jobs. So his question is, well, what do I do with my time? He's making money and he's got plenty of time. So what do you guys think?
Rotary, BNI, Rotary.
Yeah, Gerald says go
double down on the networking.
Golf course.
That would be what I do. I'd join any civic organization you could possibly join.
Yeah, I'm in 5 right now. I think that's enough, because
He's in 5 right
people,
now.
5 groups. There's a lot of people in there, so I'm just going to focus on the people that I know have the business and can throw me business.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Community spotlights. It's time to fire up community spotlights. Start interviewing people in your network, 5 to 10 minutes, and then introduce them to your network. Email them to your customers as ABAs, right? Hey, I don't know if you're in the market for a roofer, insurance. I just interviewed so-and-so. If you'd like to see it, you can check it out here. And then you send that video to the person you interviewed and said, here, you could share this with your network, let them know that you were just featured on the community spotlight. And in return, they reciprocate and introduce you to their network. So it's a multiplier for you.
Or do the Seth Peak, do those Facebook Lives, turn up to jobs, and I don't know if you've seen them before, but they're ridiculously simple. And he just turns up, turns Facebook Live on, says, hey, we're doing this job in, name a suburb or an area, walks around the job, talks about the colour, says hello to one of the guys. You've got to see them. They're ridiculously simple. And I'm so envious that I keep forgetting to do them. But they are ridiculously simple, and I recall that was the only thing that made Seth double, triple, quadruple his business.
Yeah.
It was a big factor. And they're just, you look at them and you go, they're nothing special. They are seriously nothing special at all. No high production values, no Oscar-winning acting, nothing.
Yeah, very simple, very basic. Walk around. Yep. We're in this town. We're painting this house. The camera's on it.
This is the color. This is the red team. This is blah, blah, blah. Simple. And the ladies, they love it.
Okay, thank you.
There we go. All right, you're welcome. So, Super Scott, you're up.
Super Scott. Things are. I'm very much like Sonia. I tend to get scattered and chase the shiny objects. At least once or twice a week, I'll sit down and write out a list and prioritize and go down and start banging off the list, or I just get completely overwhelmed. But things are going well right now. We're booked out into August. My big push right now is after talking with Mike Williams, I'm making some changes. I'm redoing my website, trying to massage it. He gave me a lot of great pointers. So, and then something I've ignored for years is the Google reviews. So now I'm jumping on that too. And trying to get more social proof. So yeah, it's going well.
Okay, right on. So Google reviews, and then the ultimate social proof are video testimonials, right?
Yeah, that's the next nut to crack. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Thoughts for Scott?
No, that's really good, Scott. I mean, me in my local area, I'm doing things that nobody else is doing, and it's a lot simpler for me because I got a website. Nobody else is doing that.
That's unreal.
But you would be amazed. I mean, I get people coming from these big cities moving into our little town of Ponca City with less than 30,000 people. And they talk to me, and I tell them some of the things that I'm doing. I'm telling them to scope out my Facebook and my website and tell them how they can book online and I got a QR code, and they're like, nobody else has that, and it's simple. Do what nobody else is doing.
Yeah.
And do it better. And when they're, if somebody is doing a website, have it phenomenal. I mean, Mike Williams is amazing. He reaches out in his automated email probably every other month for a strategy call. And we just change some photos around and add some photos. And I think in September, I'm going to start marketing for interior on my website, and so direct people to that. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, no,
it's easy for me because I'm in a small town.
Yeah, well, I'm in a bigger area, but it's the videos like Seth. I'm trying to duplicate that, and it's getting a lot of traction. I'm getting a lot of comments.
I bet nobody else is really doing that in your area, though.
That's right.
Yeah, so do that.
Okay, I'm shaking
it's
it
like Pantene. It will happen, but not overnight. It's a slow build, right?
Actually, Rob mentioned Seth with his videos. Has anybody seen Scott crushing it with his videos recently? He's got like picture-in-picture walkthroughs, and I'm messaging him like, "How did you do that?"
Multiple cameras at the same time. It's amazing.
Yeah.
We have the technology.
There it is. That's awesome. Fantastic. Thank you, Scott. Isaac, you're up.
Hey. So I hired for character. Awesome. And known him for years, first employee, and super hard worker. But something that slipped through the cracks was he's been struggling with using hard drugs, and it affected him showing up right at the beginning. And basically, I had it set that he was going to start on a certain day, and then he's like, "Hey, just for some extra money, is there any way that I could start early and just help you out, and you just pay me cash before we start on the official payroll?" And I let him, and the first day was fine, and then the next 2 days he had used drugs and then had a rough night or whatever, and then didn't show up when I went to pick him up. And we had a long chat about what he wants out of his future, and I guess that he had been clean for 4 years, and then girlfriend broke up with him, she got pregnant, and then all these other bad things happened. And at his previous job, there were some people there that used those drugs, and he fell back into it. And so I'm like, really, I looked up this rehab program. It's called Teen Challenge that I told him would be a good idea. And he's like, I think that would be, but I just think that I could do it on my own again. And so we kind of wrote up an agreement of, hey, I'm basically keeping him accountable, and he made this personal agreement that if he broke it 2 times, then he would go away to this place. And I think that this 24, 25-year-old kid, looks up to me and really trusts me, and is kind of more open and vulnerable with me than he is with most people in his life. Hasn't even told his family what's going on. So I feel like I have an ability to really help him. But at the same time, I'm like just now starting to really grow my business, and I'm nervous that this whole situation would poorly affect that. But I don't want to be selfish with this opportunity to help somebody. So I just don't know. I don't know whether to keep giving him chances or whether that would hurt him more, or whether to just play out. I basically have a 2-week trial period where I'm going to kind of hold off on like officially onboarding with everything. I will to some extent, but see if he abides by this 2-week agreement that he wrote up. And if he does, I mean, he's a great worker when he shows up. Nice kid, great heart. Yeah. What do you guys think?
Well, I can tell you, Isaac, I've been in that boat a few times with Chris, the guy that I ended up arresting. But I learned when I got to DYB that I don't treat my team members like family. I treat them like team members, because family is hard to fire, and team members, you build each other up, you do what you can, but there's a ceiling to what you're going to do. And with Chris, I offered him Teen Challenge. I was going to pay, even though they do it voluntarily, Teen Challenge, they'll do off of donations. I was going to pay for this 13-month program for Chris, and he didn't want to do it, and that's why I fired him. I was like, I'll do this for you. It's either you want it or you don't. And believe me, it broke my heart to have to fire Chris. Chris and I were close, but for the sake of the rest of my team, I had to let him go, and I've been better for it. So I know this guy's new, but he's a team member. He's not family. We care about him. You can help him outside the business, and then if something changes and comes back in, that's fine. But he's a team member. Go ahead, Rob.
So I agree wholeheartedly with that, and I've had issues with that little wall that you put up between yourself and team members. Sometimes it gets a few holes in it. I'd be careful of, we have an expression called "it's not your dog to walk." So his problems, you don't want to become your problems. I will borrow something from AA. At the start of each meeting, no, I'm not an alcoholic. I haven't had anything to do with it, but I've had people that are close to me that have been involved with the program. At the start of every meeting, they do a thing called the Serenity Prayer. The Serenity Prayer basically says, have the strength to understand the things that you can change, the things that you can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. I think if you sat this guy down and said, all right, man, what are the things that you can change? Write them down. The problems that you've got, and what are the things you can change, and what are the things you cannot change, and you must learn to accept, right? Because, let's be honest, half the time people fall into drug use because they're self-medicating, right? And that might be running away from problems. But half the time, and the beauty of groups like this, can I say, is sharing problems and understanding. If you sat this guy down and said, let me list out these problems, and, let's see the things that we can change and see what we can do about them, and the things we cannot change, and how can we learn to accept those things, right? I think that clarity sometimes is very powerful and very strong, right? And then, much like what Daryl was doing, I mean, that process, I think half the time you send somebody to rehab or to AA or NA, It's really understanding what the problems are that are leading you towards this pathway of self-medication, right? So I think if you can focus on the underlying issues and find a way forward from that process, I think that's going to be a powerful thing. And then again, it's not your dog to walk, exactly what Darryl was saying. At the end of the day, if this guy chooses a path, that's out of your control. That is one thing that you cannot change. And you need to learn to accept.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, you can't walk their dog. Sorry, Bryce, go.
My two things out of it. One is, and this is just from personal experience, if I could redo the last 9 years of my life, the number one thing that I would change is I would take it much more seriously when people are not ready to be employees at my company, and I would let them go a lot faster. I have wasted years of my life chasing people around, trying to solve their problems, only for me to realize that I've enabled them and I have created nothing but a monster because I have allowed them to violate boundaries repeatedly. And one thing is, for one, this is a slightly separate piece of advice. Your first hire needs to have his own vehicle. He must have his own transportation. You can't go get him. Okay. And I say that from experience because that is one of the biggest time wasters you're going to find is going and having to go pick somebody up. That's just one. The next thing is that you and I are empathetic people, right? And I want to save people. It's a big problem. It was a big problem for me, not only in hiring, it was a problem in sales where you get, the little old lady who calls you over and goes, I just need this bathroom painted and I ain't got a whole lot of money. And then then I'm like, oh, okay, we'll get a couple $100. We'll come and paint this bathroom, which turns into 3.5 days and a nightmare and a total, waste of my time. And then at the end of it, you'd think that this person would say, oh man, I'm so grateful for all the hard work you've put in on this bathroom. And they go, well, it took you 3.5 days. And they're not grateful. You know what I mean? They're not grateful at all. And the same deal with employees. And then on the other end, and I hate to say it, but I have learned that I cannot trust people who are on the path of hard drugs. I just cannot trust them because you are inviting those employees into the most intimate spaces in people's houses. I joke with my clients. I'm like, in what other profession do you find strange men in your bedroom? You know what I mean? And it's we're asking them to be very vulnerable with us in the sense that they're inviting us into their most intimate spaces. And so I can't sit here and think about, man, that guy, is sitting here looking for any possible cash that he can get because at some point in time, the drug takes over and the wonderful, beautiful soul that we find and we've fallen in love with, or we want to save is not in charge and they're not running the show. So I would be very, very hesitant to really, especially with your first hire like this, I'd be extremely hesitant to afford many chances at all. Your first couple of hires need to be rock solid. They must be rock solid or you're going to end up chasing your tail.
Okay. This is fantastic feedback. And everybody, thank you very much. Isaac, was this insightful for you?
Yeah, very much.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Very good. You're welcome. Rob, you're up.
I'm probably in a bit like Scott, I think. We've got a good team, a couple of teams out there, some new hires when I say that. People that have been with us probably a couple of months or more. So we're in that massage stage. We're just trying to get our systems together and getting people up. I think we're kind of onboarding, we're doing things, we're doing after action reports, we're just in that process of getting things, Mary Poppins, getting to know you. I know, that was
Sound of Music.
Movie.
Sound of Music.
The Sound of Music. The Sound of Music. That's what we're doing there. So for me, it's just that process of, chop wood, bring water. That's what we're doing.
Okay. Right on. So doing the do, moving forward. Everything's going smooth and coming along. Okay. All right. Right on. Doesn't get better than that. Brandon, you're up.
So recently, and I'm not sure if anybody will be able to speak to this, but one of my lead painters, his father-in-law is a project manager out at, I live here near Kennedy Space Center, and like Canaveral Air Force Base, Patrick's Air Force Base. And anyway, his father-in-law is a project manager for a big GC that has a big contract out there. And there's some private companies where like you have private work out there, which we're bidding on some of that. But then all of the stuff for Canaveral Air Force Base, Patrick's Air Force Base, NASA, all of that, it's government. So they have what's called Davis-Bacon wages. It's basically like a government mandated minimum wage, which is like higher than what like standard pay is. My question is, has anyone dealt with that before? Know somebody you could like direct me to? Because I would basically have to like for those projects pay my guys more, but then if they're on our residential projects, pay them, the normal pay. So I wasn't sure if anybody could speak to that at all, or have any feedback on taking on that kind of work.
All I know is that I was on a job that required it, but I was working for a guy back when I first started, and the lady who kind of went around making sure everybody's getting paid what they should, he pretty much had me lie to her. And so I don't know how many contractors get around like he did, but now that I look back, it was so sketchy. But yeah, I don't know how. I think the guys who did pay, you just have to bid it super high to be able to pay the right wage. But that was my only experience with it.
Got it.
Hey guys, okay. Rob?
So same but different. I have a friend that kind of works in our version of Florida, up north, Brisbane, and he does a lot of high-rise stuff, and he does stuff off ropes, right? So again, guys and girls that hang off ropes and paint get paid a lot more than they would if they were working on terra firma. And so he ran or runs a resi repaint business, just like we all do. And what he found was that if there was nothing going on the high-rise stuff and he had the guys that were working on the high-rise stuff go and help the guys that were doing the resi repaint stuff where they were getting paid less, he found that that was a very big problem in that they weren't getting paid, they weren't making bank, they weren't printing Benjamins, as you guys call them, they weren't making cheddar, as you say over there, and that they were doing hanging off ropes, that they were, working in Mrs. Smith's resi repaint. He had a big problem with that because the guys just didn't want to do it, and they made it painfully obvious that they didn't want to do resi repaint stuff when they're earning bank hanging off ropes off the side of buildings in Brisbane. So not saying that that's an issue, but that's an issue.
I could definitely see how it would. They'd like get used to being out there, and those projects aren't all the time. They're just like, as they come. But I could see it being a problem where, when they get back to having to do the residential repaints, they might get upset. So that's definitely a good.
When everybody wants to be a space cadet, it could be a problem.
Sure.
So the inverse of this psychology is anytime they're not appreciating their job, go find some of the doggiest, cheapest work you can for a couple of days.
That's it. Bryce has got ladies that need bathrooms done for $200 in his area.
Yeah, for half wage, Yeah. Scott, were you, I see a hand up. Were you going to check?
Well, I just think we have some, I've heard of some similar stuff here, but I've also dealt with some union guys. I mean, and they make more bank than we do. I've been on some union sites and made some, through the side door to do some installations. And yeah, the money's phenomenal, but I think I would stay away from it personally. I think it's a mental and a perception thing that the guys are just not going to be able to deal with in their headspace. And then just the complexity of itself. Just you have to keep in mind that these jobs are different than these jobs, and you're adding another layer. You're adding another layer. I'd like to keep a simple system, keep things running simple, keep everything steady. Yeah, I think you're just opening up to a lot of possibilities here that you don't want to deal with.
And, whilst you're doing these jobs, you're probably missing out on, the 3Ps, right? So if these things don't fall in your 3Ps, you're missing out on, there we go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So you're missing out on jobs that you otherwise could produce easily, are profitable, and the guys know the process. You're not climbing rocket ships or doing anything like that. You're just doing resi repaint stuff, right? So, it's just rinse and repeat, baby. It's like taking you out of, I guess what Scott was saying, you're doing something that's different, right? And different may be an opportunity, or it could be a disaster. It could be something, like me, I'm not going to go start painting condos. It's just not what we do. We're not set up for it. The guys don't like it. There's no benefit to my business. There's no relationship building or rapport I can build to a future customer that's going to refer and give me repeat business. It's just not part of my wheelhouse, 3Ps, And sometimes we see the cha-ching, little dollar sign sometimes, And hey, my life is full of the house on the hill story, which Ron shared many years ago. And, I'm not ashamed to say that it recently bit me on the behind again. But it always catches you. We talked about it earlier in this meeting, the bright, shiny thing.
Yes.
The bright, shiny thing.
Just to bring it home, yeah, you're absolutely right. So if we stick with our 3Ps and we stay top of mind, we build that endless referral flywheel. These projects don't give us that. So we're playing the long game here.
Yeah. Blast off in a different way, Brandon. Blast off in a different way. Yeah.
Follow the system, follow the path. I'm glad you brought that one because that's a big one. Fantastic. All right. So now it's time to roll out with takeaways.
Yes.
Bryce, would you lead the way, please?
We need to do group onboarding. I think that is a really, really good thing because then everybody gets to keep them. Mm-hmm. Everybody gets to hold each other accountable in trying to incorporate a company culture where everyone is holding each other accountable to the same standards. That's my big takeaway.
Right on. Thank you. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Sonia.
The nice stick to a routine, and don't try to eat the whole elephant at one time. Just a little bite size and what you can handle. But like what's first of all, like what Bryce was mentioning as far as the list, what to do in operations, and then go if you have, you can do that jam session, and then also I like I remember the Eisenhower Matrix in the Focus book that I was reading. Forgot what the name of that one is, but that one I was in lesson 8, and I was like, oh yeah, that is right. And so I can connect with that right now. And then the Todoist, and I say, okay, because I get all lost in them, and so sticking to one, I can look into that one and say, oh yeah, because there's a list of ADD apps or all kinds of those things. But just the grounding a little. I got grounded. Thank you.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you, Stephen.
So my takeaways were group onboarding. I really like that. I actually discuss a lot of things with my employees. We talk about everything. So I like the group onboarding. I think that's could be key. Keeping good people. Keeping it simple is great. I like the thing, no car, no job. I'm not transporting people. And as far as people doing drugs in my job place, does not happen. I won't tolerate it. It sucks up too much time. So that's it.
Right on. Thank you. Craig.
I think I have an event to plan for when we get our 100th Google review. And thank you for all the suggestions about, praising people in front of their spouses. There's no kids to praise in front of. One of my painters has one in the oven, but
Not him,
Talk
but
to
his
the
wife.
baby.
What are your research out there, Craig?
Okay. Now, Craig, you're going to fly us all in for this celebration, right?
I'm expecting an invite in my inbox, buddy.
We'll see. It's a long swim from Aussie land, isn't it, Rob?
Right on. Isaac. Thank you, Craig.
Yeah, I appreciate all you guys' input. Just remembering that he's not family, and just being really strong on my boundaries and the no car thing, which unfortunately that slipped through too. And I think that it's probably just not going to be a good fit to start growing in this pattern. So that definitely helps. And then the community spotlights, I'm really stoked about. I think that you mentioning that again refocuses that, because I think that's huge. So no, I really appreciate everything. It was awesome.
Fantastic. Thank you, Isaac. Brandon.
Stick to the 3 Ps.
Yes, sir. Way to be. Awesome. Let's see here. Rob?
You know, I say this every meeting, and it's become habitual, but it is really about communication and relationship building. Almost every issue raised this evening for me, if I can say, is about communication and relationship building, whether it be with an employee, a customer, a supplier, Cape Canaveral. It doesn't matter. It's about relationship building and communication.
Right on. Thank you, Rob. Scott?
Great meeting this morning. I've got a lot of notes here, but I think what I want to key in on for me is my morning routine. I used to be really diligent, but I've let it slide, so I have to get back onto that and refocus with my focus planner to build my morning routine. That's my takeaway.
Awesome. Right on. Thank you very much. Daryl, you opened us up with that awesome story. Why don't you close us out with your takeaways?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Scott there. I have a lot of notes here, but onboarding, like what Bryce was talking about, though, that's kind of what I'm going to focus on really stepping up on what I'm doing. I've been doing pretty good, but I see a lot of improvements that can be made. So onboarding.
Fantastic. Thank you.
That's very arresting, Daryl. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. And thank you, MG11, for this special DYB podcast episode to give everybody a glimpse at all the awesomeness that you guys bring. Wanted to continue to encourage you all to dream big, hustle smarter. You've got this. Have a great day, everybody.
All right.
Be blessed.
Thanks, guys.